Alright, let's look at this example. It says, write the polynomial function with rational coefficients that has negative I and 1 minus I as two of its zeros. So, what this means, that negative I and 1 minus I are zeros for this function we're trying to create, that just means that when we solve for the zeros of this function, we're going to end up with x is equal to negative I and x is equal to 1 minus I. Now, kind of going backwards, we want to set each of these equations equal to 0. So x, if I add I to both sides, I get x plus I is equal to 0. That's one of the factors. And then setting the second equation, I'm going to have x minus 1 plus I is equal to 0. Now, when functions have complex zeros, in other words, zeros that have imaginary numbers in them, like these do, negative I and 1 minus I, the conjugates of these complex numbers are also zeros. So x is equal to negative I is one of the zeros. X is equal to positive I is another zero, or its conjugate. Similarly, x equals 1 minus I is a zero. X is equal to 1 plus I is also a 0. So turning these into factors, I'm going to have x minus I is equal to 0, and then I'll have x minus 1 minus I is equal to 0. So this function is going to be fourth degree, and I have four factors that I'm going to multiply together in order to get this function. Now, when we do this, we want to multiply the two conjugates together first, but let's just write out where we're at. So this function, p of x, is going to be equal to x plus I, x minus I, x minus 1 plus I, x minus 1 minus I. Now, we have expressed this polynomial function that has the given values as zeros. However, this function does not have rational coefficients. So this function will only have rational coefficients once we multiply all of these factors out. So again, multiply the two conjugates together first. So x plus I, x minus I, and then these two factors together. So for the first pair of conjugates, I get x squared plus xi minus I squared. Xi and negative xi cancels. I squared is equal to negative 1. So I end up with x squared minus negative 1 is plus 1. Now in the second pair of conjugates that we multiply, we need to be really careful. We have 3 terms times 3 terms, so we should end up with 9 terms. So that's a check you should do for yourself. And then all of the terms that have I are going to cancel. So negative xi, positive I, negative I, and then this negative I squared is equal to minus negative 1. So we end up with is x squared. I have negative x, so minus 2x, and then plus 1 minus negative 1, so that's plus 1, so that gets us plus 2. And then we just multiply this part out. So distributing everything, we have 2 terms times 3 terms, so we should end up with 6 terms. We get x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 2x squared plus x squared minus 2x plus 2. Simplifying, we can combine these two terms to give us 3x squared. So what we end up with is x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 2x plus 2. And that's what our function is, so I'll write it in function notation. And there we have it.